You won't believe what happened in today's story.
What's wrong with him? Miller's Creek wasn't much more than a ditch that cut through the woods, brown water crawling under a sagging wooden bridge. Kids in town said it marked a border. On one side, the school, the gas station, the square; on the other, the house. Nobody called it by an address, just the house. It had been empty for years, or maybe not. Every fall, when the air turned sharp and the leaves went brittle, someone claimed to see lights through its cracked windows. A yellow flicker like candles, or maybe like eyes. Ethan Caldwell never believed it. He was 13, and 13 is too old for ghost stories, at least when your dad's around. His father would laugh and call him a baby if he admitted he was nervous, but when his friends dared him cross the bridge, touch the porch, bring back proof, he didn't argue, he just nodded. The house stood 3 stories tall, roofline jagged against the sky, paint peeled off in strips, vines crawled across the shutters like veins, the porch sagged in the middle as if it might swallow anyone who stepped on it. Ethan's breath came fast. He told himself it was only the cold. He reached the edge of the porch and pressed one sneaker on the warped step. The wood groaned. He imagined the sound echoing through the empty rooms, alerting something inside. He forced himself up 2 more steps, heart hammering. He was close enough to see the front door, half open, just a crack, like someone had been expecting him. For proof, he carried a cheap flashlight from his dad's workshop. He flicked it on. The beam cut across the hallway inside. Dust, wallpaper peeling, a staircase rising into shadow. And then movement. Not clear, not full, just the corner of something pale slipping past the stairs. Too quick to see, too solid to ignore. Ethan froze, his throat tightened. He tried to tell himself it was nothing. Dust light his nerves, but the front door creaked wider slowly as if pulled by a hand. He bolted. By the time he reached the bridge, he could still hear the door groaning shut behind him. Not slammed, not blown by wind, just shut, deliberate. And when he finally dared to look back, a faint glow leaked from the upstairs window. Yellow, waiting. Part 2, the dare that stuck. Ethan didn't tell his dad what he saw. He told his friends. They were waiting behind the bleachers after school, Nick, who never shut up, and Amber, who had a way of staring like she could see through people. Ethan wanted to sound casual, but his voice shook when he said it. The door opened on its own. Nick snorted, wind, old houses creak, big deal. Amber tilted her head, but you ran. That stung. He wanted to snap back, but her eyes held him still. Something was inside, he whispered. Nick laughed, louder than needed. Then we'll all go, tonight after dark. Ethan's stomach turned. He hadn't agreed to that, but if he refused, the story would twist into something worse. He'd never live it down. Amber smiled, not kind, not cruel, just knowing. Fine, tonight. They met at the bridge when the town lights had faded. Crickets rasped in the grass. The house stood black against the tree line, waiting. Nick carried a baseball bat. Amber carried nothing at all. Ethan brought the flashlight again, though his hand shook so hard the beam jittered. Crossing the bridge felt different this time. He could almost sense the house listening, waiting for them to come closer. The porch sagged under their weight. The front door stood closed now, as if it had never shifted. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. Nick shoved the bat against the door. It swung inward with a groan. The smell hit first, damp wood mildew, something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. Amber stepped inside, just like that, no hesitation. Well, she said over her shoulder. Nick followed. Ethan lingered on the threshold, every nerve screaming at him to stop. But then he heard it. A sound from upstairs, soft, wet, like bare feet moving across old wood. Someone's here, Ethan hissed. Amber only smiled again, faint in the dark. Of course, she said, that's why we came. Part 3, upstairs. The staircase groaned under their weight. Each step felt too long, too narrow, too fragile. Ethan wanted to turn back, but Amber was already halfway up, steady as if she belonged here. Nick tapped the bat against his leg, trying to look tough. His voice cracked when he whispered, probably squatters, junkies, nothing more. But the sound didn't belong to junkies. It came again, soft, deliberate, a dragging step, then silence. Amber reached the landing first. Her flashlight wasn't real. She didn't bring one. She didn't need one. Ethan realized how dark it was up here, how the hallway stretched both ways like a throat. Doors lined each side, some ajar, others closed tight. Amber pointed to the left, that one. Ethan froze. Why? I heard breathing, she said simply. Nick muttered something Ethan couldn't catch. He pushed past, swung the bat, and shoved the door wide. The room inside was almost empty. Broken dresser, shattered glass on the floor, torn curtain lifting in the draft. And something carved into the wall. Ethan raised the flashlight. The beam caught words scratched deep into plaster, letters jagged and uneven, like someone had written with nails. Don't trust THEM. Amber's face stayed unreadable. Nick swore under his breath. Then a new sound came close enough to cut the air, 3 knocks, slow, heavy, from the other side of the wall. Nick dropped the bat. Amber didn't flinch, she just whispered, "It knows we're here." Part 4, the closet. The knocks faded, swallowed by the house. For a moment, silence pressed so heavy Ethan thought it might crack his skull. Nick snatched up the bat again, muttering curses. He swung it against the wall where the sound had come from. Plaster crumbled, dust clouded, nothing. Amber didn't even look at him. She stepped past, straight toward a narrow door at the far end of the hall. It was small, wedged between 2 bedrooms, the kind of door people forget exists. She turned the knob, it stuck. She pushed harder, and the wood gave way with a groan. Inside, a closet, stale air thick with the smell of rot, shelves sagging, bundled fabric slumped in the corner. Ethan lifted his flashlight. The beam landed on the fabric, not fabric, clothing. A child's dress, faded blue, small enough for a 7-year-old. Under it, bones, thin, brittle, tangled in the dress as if whoever wore it had simply curled up and never left. Nick gagged. He dropped the bat again. Ethan's throat closed. He wanted to scream, but the sound jammed in his chest. He couldn't look away from the skull, the hollow sockets staring up like they'd been waiting. Amber knelt beside the bundle, brushing dust off the dress with her fingers. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "She was locked in," Amber said. "You can see the scratches." Ethan followed her gaze. The inside of the closet door was torn to splinters, long grooves carved by desperate hands. Suddenly the flashlight flickered, once, twice, then steadied. And in the silence that followed, a whisper rose from the closet, close to Ethan's ear though no one was near enough to speak. "One of you belongs here." Part 5, the whisper's choice. The whisper clung to Ethan's skin like cold breath. He jerked back, but Amber didn't move. She stayed kneeling by the little bones, as if the voice hadn't reached her at all. Nick, pale and shaking, hissed, "We're leaving, now." He grabbed Ethan's arm, but Ethan couldn't stop staring at the scratches on the door. Dozens of them, hundreds, like a calendar of desperation. Amber finally stood. Her eyes glimmered in the faint beam of the flashlight. "If we leave now, it will follow." Ethan's heart stuttered. "What do you mean, follow?" She didn't answer. She brushed past them, deeper into the hallway, toward another door, this one at the very end. Heavy, shut tight, brass knob dark with age. The closer Ethan came, the colder the air grew. His breath puffed in white mist, though it wasn't winter yet. Nick muttered prayers under his breath. Amber placed her hand on the knob. The metal squealed as it turned. The door swung open, revealing a bedroom. It was almost intact, bed frame still made, wallpaper faded but whole, a child's room untouched by rot as if sealed away from time. On the nightstand, a diary. Ethan stepped forward before he could stop himself. He picked it up. The cover was cracked leather, initials burned into it, AC. His own last name, Caldwell. Ethan's hands shook, his throat dried. Nick whispered, "What the hell?" Ethan flipped it open. The handwriting was shaky but readable. The first page said only one line, scrawled in black ink. "Father locked me in the dark because I told the truth." Part 6, blood in the walls. Ethan slammed the diary shut. His fingers tingled as if the leather burned. "That doesn't mean anything," he blurted. "It's just letters anybody could have." "Caldwell," Amber finished for him, "not a question, a fact." Nick stared at Ethan like he'd grown another head. "Your family owned this dump." "No," Ethan snapped, too fast, too defensive. "We live on Franklin Street. My dad, he works at the mill, he's never." But the words twisted inside him. His father had always been strange about that part of town. Whenever Ethan asked about the woods, about the bridge, his dad's jaw would lock tight. "Stay away, don't ask again." Amber set the diary back on the nightstand. Her voice was calm but heavy. "She was your blood, I can feel it." Ethan's stomach turned. He wanted to deny it, to laugh, to run. But the room seemed to lean closer around him, the air thick with mildew and something coppery, metallic, like blood. Nick swore under his breath, "I'm not staying here for family drama, we're done." He stormed toward the hall, back clenched. The moment he crossed the threshold, the house shuddered. Wood snapped somewhere deep inside the walls. The door slammed shut behind him. Amber and Ethan lunged, pulling, shoving, but the knob wouldn't turn. From the other side came Nick's voice, muffled but rising in panic. "Open it, open it." Then silence. Only silence. And when Ethan pressed his ear to the door, he heard something moving on the other side, something that didn't breathe like a person. Something that dragged itself, slow and wet, closer and closer. Part 7. What took Nick? The banging stopped too suddenly. Ethan's hands trembled on the brass knob, but it was useless, locked tight, colder than ice. "Nick," his voice cracked, "say something." Silence stretched, thick and awful. Then came a scrape, wood on wood, a dragging sound, slow, uneven. Amber leaned close to the door, her ear pressed flat. Her face didn't change, though her eyes darkened. He's not alone anymore. Ethan's chest tightened. "We have to help him." He slammed his shoulder against the door, pain shooting through his arm. The wood didn't budge. From the other side a sound rose, half laugh, half sob. Nick's voice, but not right. Too low, too broken, like it came from the bottom of a well. "Ethan, it wants you." Ethan stumbled back. "No." The laugh sob twisted louder, warping into something that couldn't be human. The dragging moved away, deeper into the house. The floor groaned under its weight. And then silence again. Amber touched Ethan's wrist. Her skin was icy cold. "The house chose, he won't come back the same." Ethan jerked free. "Shut up, don't talk like that, we'll find him." Amber's gaze didn't waver. "Then we go deeper." Behind them, the diary lay open again on the nightstand, though neither had touched it. A new line scrawled across the page, the ink still wet. "He betrayed me too." Part 8. Downward. Ethan didn't want to touch the diary again, but the words seemed to breathe on the page, black ink pulsing like a wound. He slammed it shut and shoved it under the bed, out of sight. Amber didn't protest, she only tilted her head, listening. He's below us now. The floor vibrated faintly, a groan deep in the beams, as if the whole house exhaled. Ethan's flashlight beam jittered as his hand shook. "There's no basement," he said. "I've never." The sentence died in his throat. He'd been about to say, "I've never heard of one," but how would he know? His father never let him near this place. Amber was already moving, her steps soft, certain. She led him back down the hall, past the closet with the bones, past the sagging staircase. Each shadow seemed to bend toward them. They reached the kitchen, cabinets hung off their hinges, sink rusted through. The smell here was stronger, rot layered over something chemical, sharp enough to sting Ethan's nose. In the far corner, half hidden by collapsed boards, gaped a square of darkness. A hatch, its wood warped, ring handle streaked with rust. Amber knelt, she slid her fingers under the handle and pulled. The hatch screeched open. A draft of cold air spilled out, damp and sour, as if the earth itself had rotted. Ethan's stomach turned. "We don't go down there." Amber looked at him, her face unreadable in the weak flashlight beam. "You don't understand, we're already down there." From the black opening rose a sound, a voice, Nick's voice. "Help, it hurts." Ethan's heart lurched, he leaned closer, and what answered from the dark was Nick at all. "Ethan." Part 9. The Descent. Ethan's stomach twisted. The darkness of the hatch yawned beneath them, swallowing the weak beam of his flashlight. Cold air rolled up like a living thing, carrying Nick's voice, ragged, pleading. "Ethan, please." Amber crouched at the edge, her fingers brushing the warped wood. "We go together, no hesitation." Ethan's hand shook as he grasped hers. The metal handle bit his palm, icy and slick. He glanced back toward the staircase, the hallway above safe and known. Behind them, the closet with bones, the bedroom with the diary, all reminders of what they'd already seen. He swallowed. "I don't want to." Amber's eyes caught his. "It's already down there, we either follow or leave him." The first step was a groan. Wood moaned under their weight, as if warning them. Ethan's flashlight flickered, then steadied. Amber moved first, descending into blackness like she belonged there. Ethan followed, each step deeper into the cold, damp smell of the earth beneath the house. Halfway down, the walls closed in. They were no longer painted or wallpapered. Rough stone, slick with moisture, glistened in the pale light. The air was heavier, metallic. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat echoing off the walls. "Nick," he called, voice trembling. "Where are you?" A scraping sound answered from below, slow, wet like claws across stone, then a whisper, low and coaxing. "Ethan, come closer." Amber froze. "Don't talk back, move." Her words were sharp. She led them to a cavernous space at the end of the stairs. A single beam of yellow light leaked from cracks in the far wall. Shadows flickered, bending unnaturally. There, half hidden by darkness, was Nick, or what used to be Nick. His head was lowered, shoulders shaking, skin pale as bone. His eyes, when they met Ethan's, were empty, voids reflecting nothing. "Nick," Ethan ran. Amber grabbed his arm, holding him back. The closer they came, the more the shadows seemed to stretch, curling around Nick, holding him in place. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through Ethan's teeth and bones. Then the whispers joined the hum, a chorus from the walls themselves. "He belongs here, you belong here, all are chosen." Nick's voice rose, unnatural and breaking. "Ethan, it's not me, it's not me." Ethan faltered. Amber gripped his shoulder, her eyes burning. "We take him, now, whatever this is, it's tied to your blood." The air shifted, something moved behind the shadows, slow and deliberate. Shapes coalesced, tall, thin, limbs like branches, faces twisted in frozen screams. The smell of rot thickened. Ethan's stomach turned. Every instinct screamed to run, to flee, but Amber stepped forward, hand outstretched, unafraid. Ethan followed, trembling, and together they crossed the threshold. The moment their hands touched Nick's shoulder, the shadows recoiled, screeching like wind through dead trees. The yellow light flared, blinding, then dimmed. Nick collapsed into Ethan's arms, weak, shivering. His voice was faint, almost human again. It's inside the walls, it knows." Amber helped them back toward the stairs, never taking her eyes off the shadows that lingered, twitching at the edges. The air remained thick with fear, but they had him for now. Above, the house creaked as if sighing, and somewhere deep beneath something stirred, patient, waiting. Part 10 echoes in the walls. Back upstairs, the house felt different, lighter somehow, yet heavier. Ethan carried Nick, who was pale and trembling, while Amber led the way, eyes scanning every shadow. The diary still lay open on the nightstand, black ink pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. "There in the walls," Nick whispered hoarsely. "Whispers, watching, waiting." Ethan shook his head. "What are they, ghosts?" Amber didn't answer immediately. She crouched, tracing her fingers along the cracked plaster near the closet. The lines etched there weren't just random, they formed shapes, faces, hands, letters. CALDWELL, scratched repeatedly, over and over. "They know your name," she said softly, "and they know your blood." Ethan's stomach turned. "Blood, my blood." Amber nodded, eyes dark. "Family never leaves places like this, not really. They mark them, bind them. Your ancestor, whoever AC was, left something behind." Nick shivered violently. "I felt it inside me, moving. I couldn't stop it." A low hum rose from the walls. Ethan could feel it in his chest. It pulsed with each heartbeat, a rhythm that seemed to echo inside his skull. Shadows flickered across the peeling wallpaper, as if the house itself breathed. Amber moved toward the diary. "It wants something from you, from all of us maybe, from your family first." Ethan leaned closer. On the next page, new words had appeared. "The blood remembers, the walls remember, you cannot hide." A sudden crash echoed from the attic above. Dust rained from the ceiling. The house groaned, floorboards shaking underfoot. Amber grabbed Ethan and Nick. "We need answers. Upstairs, attic, that's where it began." Ethan froze. "Attic? No way, that's..." "Where the truth waits," Amber finished. Her voice was firm, unyielding, "and we don't have the luxury to turn back." The whisper rose again, threading through the air, through the walls, through the marrow in Ethan's bones. "Caldwell, you belong." Ethan swallowed, feeling a mix of fear and inevitability. The house wasn't just a building, it was alive, watching, hungry, and somehow it had been waiting for him. They climbed the stairs, shadows clinging to every corner, the hum growing louder, pulsing like a heartbeat in sync with Ethan's own. The attic door loomed at the top, black against the ceiling light. Amber's hand pressed the knob. The whisper followed them, soft, coaxing. Come home." Ethan's hand hovered over hers. He wanted to run, but the walls, they knew him, and somehow he knew he couldn't escape, not yet. Part 11, The Attic Secret. The attic door groaned as Amber pushed it open. Dust swirled in the single shaft of pale moonlight spilling through a grimy window. The air was thick, almost viscous, carrying a smell of damp earth and rusted metal. Ethan stepped cautiously, each floorboard groaned beneath him. Shadows stretched and twisted, crawling along the walls like living things. Nick stayed close, shivering, barely able to lift his eyes from the floor. The room was cluttered with decades of forgotten possessions, trunks, crates, broken toys, and stacks of yellowed papers. But in the center stood a single object that drew their attention, a tall, carved wooden chest, etched with symbols Ethan didn't recognize. Amber knelt beside it. This is where it began. Ethan peered over her shoulder. Dust coated the carvings, but beneath he could see letters scratched deep into the wood, A.C. Caldwell. Nick's voice trembled. That's the same as the diary. Amber nodded, brushing dust off the lid. This chest belonged to the child in the diary. Whoever AC was, they left more than memories behind. Ethan hesitated. What could be in there? Amber's eyes didn't leave the chest. Something that remembers, something bound to your bloodline, something that won't forgive. With a deep breath, Amber lifted the lid. Inside, the chest was filled with papers, dolls with cracked porcelain faces, and a small, leather-bound book, different from the diary downstairs. Ethan picked up the book. Its cover was worn, but the pages were clean. Opening it, he found sketches, rooms of the house, strange symbols, and handwritten notes. They watch through walls, they know blood. Only the air can release them or be consumed. A sudden gust rattled the window. Shadows flickered violently. The attic seemed to stretch, elongating, pressing down on them. Nick stumbled back, almost dropping Ethan's arm. The whisper rose again, clearer this time. Air, remember, obey, join. Ethan's breath caught. They're talking to me. Amber placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. No, they're testing you, seeing if you understand what binds your family to this place. From the corner of the attic, a pile of broken toys shifted. One doll's head rolled forward, eyes staring blankly. Ethan's stomach twisted. The shadows in the corners weren't just shadows, they were waiting, moving, alive. Amber closed the chest slowly, turning toward him. We need the answers, Ethan. Your family's past, it's here. All of it, but be ready. The house, it won't let us leave until it gets what it wants. The hum from the walls grew louder, vibrating through the floor and into Ethan's bones. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, echoing the whisper that had followed them since the first step into the house. Caldwell come home. Part 12, AC's Secret. Ethan flipped the small leather-bound book open. The handwriting was jagged, hurried, almost desperate. Symbols he didn't recognize threaded between words. The language was familiar and alien at once, as if the house itself had taught it. Amber leaned close, eyes scanning over his shoulder. This isn't just a diary, it's instructions, rituals, warnings, a record of what happened here. Ethan swallowed hard. What happened here? The pages told a story that made his blood run cold. AC Caldwell had been a child like him. Alone in the house, locked away by someone in the family. But the diary hinted at something darker, a presence that came for him, a living shadow in the walls that fed on fear and blood. One page stood out, written in larger, almost frantic letters. They watch from within, they know the blood. Only one can bind them or be devoured. Nick shivered beside him, voice barely audible. The walls, they took me. Ethan's fingers traced the words, feeling the weight of the past pressing down. So, it's been waiting for me all this time. Amber nodded, for the air, for the one with Caldwell blood. It remembers Ethan, and it won't forget. A sudden scraping sound made them freeze. From beneath the floorboards, a low moan rose, growing louder. The house pulsed with life, breathing with a hunger that seemed endless. Shadows twined around the walls, crawling, stretching, whispering in the voice of AC. Bind, obey, or be consumed. Ethan's pulse raced. Bind, obey, what does that mean? Amber's voice was steady, though her eyes glimmered with fear. It means you're the only one who can stop it or continue it. AC tried before, failed. That's why we found the bones. That's why it reached for Nick. The attic seemed to lean closer, walls groaning like bones. The broken dolls in the corner shifted again, their cracked eyes glinting. Ethan's hand shook as he closed the book. I don't want this, he whispered. I'm just a kid. Amber put a hand on his shoulder, firm. You don't get a choice, not really, but you do get to decide how you face it. We can end this, Ethan, or the house will end us. A new whisper rose, echoing through the beams and floorboards. The air, remember, bind, obey, or be consumed. Ethan felt it in his chest, in his bones, in the blood that tied him to this house. The past wasn't past, the house hadn't forgotten, and now neither could he. Part 13, First Binding. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the book again. Symbols crawled across the pages like tiny living things, shifting subtly in the dim moonlight from the attic window. Amber stood close, her face pale but determined, guiding him through the first instructions, a ritual of binding meant to keep the house's hunger at bay. "You have to focus," she whispered. "It's listening, you can't hesitate." Ethan swallowed. "I don't even know if I can." "You have to, Nick's life, our lives, depends on it." The instructions called for a line of salt along the floor, shapes traced with chalk, words whispered that no human tongue should naturally form. Ethan did as he was told, voice shaking, whispering the syllables. The air around them thickened, vibrating with the house's breath. A low hum rose from the walls, shadows twisted, drawn toward the chalk lines. Ethan's chest tightened. The house pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with his own. Suddenly Nick whimpered from the corner, "It's inside me." Ethan froze. Amber pointed. "It's testing you, you have to continue." He nodded, voice firmer now, repeating the phrases from the book. The shadows recoiled slightly at each word, writhing and twisting but unable to escape the lines of salt. A cold wind rushed through the attic, carrying voices in a chorus. "Arabe bind, blood, remember." Ethan faltered, nearly giving in to panic, but Amber steadied him. "Control it, or it controls you." Another shiver ran through Nick. Ethan could see the fear, the residue of the house's influence. He reached out, taking Nick's hand, letting his own bloodline connect through touch. A spark of warmth surged, faint but real, a tether between them. The hum from the walls crescendoed, then faltered. The shadows twisted violently, then shrank back toward corners, hissing. The lines of salt glowed faintly in the dark, keeping them at bay. Breathless, Ethan slumped to the floor. Nick collapsed beside him, free from the immediate grasp of the house, though still pale and trembling. Amber's eyes scanned the attic, alert. "They'll come again," she said softly, "but you did it, the first binding, it worked, for now." Ethan's hands shook, chalk and salt residue caked under his nails. The house seemed quieter, but the pulse in the walls still throbbed, patient, waiting. And in the corner, the cracked-eyed dolls had shifted slightly. One stared directly at Ethan, a faint, knowing smile etched into its porcelain face. "The heir has begun." Part 14, Repercussions. The attic was silent, too silent. Ethan's chest still ached from the effort, his hands trembling from the strain of the first binding. Nick sat beside him, pale, shivering, but free. Amber's eyes never left the shadows that lingered in the corners, twitching, as if testing the strength of their control. "They're angry," she whispered. "The house, it doesn't forgive easily." Ethan swallowed, trying to steady his breath. "Angry, I thought we stopped it." Amber shook her head. "You contained it for now, but it adapts, it watches, it knows you're the heir, it's learning." From the hallway below came a low rumble. Floorboards shifted like the house was settling or moving. The walls whispered again, voices layered, overlapping. "Heir, remember, obey, bind, fail." Nick flinched. It's in the walls again. I can feel it." Ethan's pulse raced. The air seemed thicker, more viscous, pressing in on him. Shadows moved independently now, no longer bound entirely by the salt lines. One elongated, reaching toward the attic door, twisting and writhing like smoke made solid. Amber stood. "We need to go lower, the cellar, the heart of the house. That's where it's strongest, where AC failed." Ethan hesitated. The memory of the first descent churned in his stomach. I don't know if I can." "You can," Amber said sharply, "because you have to. The house won't let us leave with Nick unless we finish this. You have the bloodline, it's on you." A sudden scrape echoed from beneath the attic floorboards. Ethan jumped, flashlight beams swinging wildly. Shadows condensed near the corners, faces forming in the darkness, twisted and silent, watching. "Then let's go," he said, voice barely audible. "Let's finish this." The hum in the walls swelled, vibrating through their bones, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat not their own. The house seemed alive, impatient, aware. Ethan felt a flicker of understanding. This wasn't just a building. It was a predator, and they were walking into its mouth. As they descended the stairs, Nick clutched Ethan's hand, trembling but silent. Amber led the way, her gaze fixed on the darkness below, and somewhere deep beneath them, a voice, barely more than a whisper, followed. Ere remember, obey, or be consumed. The cellar door loomed ahead, black and foreboding, the air thick with rot and anticipation. Ethan's stomach knotted, but he knew there was no turning back. The heart of the house awaited, and it was hungry. Part 15, Heart of the House. The cellar door sagged on its hinges, blackness pressing outward like a living thing. Ethan hesitated, hand on the knob, heart hammering. Amber's eyes met his steady, unwavering. We go together, no hesitation. He turned the handle. The door groaned, swinging open to reveal a staircase descending into darkness so thick it seemed to swallow the weak moonlight from the attic above. The smell hit first, damp earth, rot, and something metallic, coppery, blood, old and new. Ethan's flashlight flickered violently. Shadows clung to the stone walls, twisting, crawling, as if the house itself were alive, moving toward him. "Nick," Ethan whispered, gripping his friend's arm, "are you ready?" Nick's nod was barely perceptible, pale lips trembling. I think so." Amber led the way down. Each step echoed unnaturally, the sound bouncing and multiplying through the vast cellar. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing with a slow, rhythmic thrum. Ethan felt it in his chest, like the house's heartbeat synced to his own. At the bottom, the space opened into a cavernous chamber. Stone walls lined with strange carvings, symbols that matched the diary and the book. At the center, a pit of darkness yawned, the source of the house's pulse. Shadows writhed within it, tall and thin, faceless, stretching upward as if alive. "They're feeding," Amber whispered. "This is where AC tried and failed." Ethan stepped closer. The air was thick, heavy, vibrating with whispers. "Air obey, bind, remember, join us." Nick shivered violently. "It's inside me again." Ethan swallowed, forcing the words he had learned from the book to his lips. The salt lines, the symbols, the phrases, all a shield and a key. He repeated them steadily, feeling the pull of the house claw at his mind, trying to drag him into the pit. The shadows shrieked, stretching toward him, but recoiled at the power of the bloodline, the binding. The air throbbed with tension, vibrating through stone, wood, and bone. Amber's voice cut through the chaos. "Focus, Ethan, bind it, don't let it take you or Nick." Ethan felt a surge of heat in his chest, a pulse like fire. His voice rose, chanting the words, tracing the symbols in the air. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently, writhing as if torn between hunger and fear. Then silence. The pit seemed to shrink, the walls of shadows collapsing inward. Nick fell to his knees, gasping, free from the grasp of the darkness. Ethan staggered back, sweat pouring, heart hammering. Amber lowered her hands, exhausted but alive. The chamber was still. The hum in the walls persisted, faint now but patient, waiting. Ethan looked at Amber. Did we stop it?" Amber shook her head. "No, we contained it for now, but it remembers and it waits, always." From somewhere deep within the walls came a whisper, soft and coaxing, unmistakable. "The air has begun, but the house is patient." Ethan swallowed. The house wasn't defeated, not yet, and he knew, deep in his bones, that the true test had only just begun. Part 16, Ripples. They climbed back into the main floor, chest heaving, limbs trembling. The house felt different, quieter, almost contemplative, but Ethan could feel the pulse of the cellar beneath their feet, slow and insistent, like a predator waiting. Nick sank into a corner, pale and shaking. I feel it still, in me, in my head." Amber knelt beside him. "It tried to claim you, but the binding slowed it. For now, you'll need rest." Ethan ran a hand over the diary he'd carried from the attic. Symbols, words, the story of A.C., all etched into his memory now. He realized the house wasn't done with them. Each room, each shadow could hide another test. Outside, the wind rattled the broken windows. From the street beyond Miller's Creek, faint lights flickered unnaturally, neighbors' windows glowing with a strange, yellow shimmer, as if the house's influence reached beyond its walls. Amber's voice cut through his thoughts. "It's spreading, the house touches the town. The bloodline, it matters here too. It wants acknowledgement, obedience." Ethan's stomach turned. "But we did everything, we bound it, didn't we?" Amber shook her head. "We contained it, yes, but containment isn't destruction, it's patience. And houses like this, they remember everything." Nick shivered again. "I saw things, faces, shadows moving, and whispers calling my name." Ethan clenched his fists. The walls seemed to breathe around them, carrying faint echoes of the attic and the cellar. The house's pulse was a low hum beneath the floorboards, beneath the walls, reaching into the street. Amber rose, eyes scanning every shadow. Tomorrow we need answers about your family, about AC Caldwell, about why this place chose you, Ethan. Ethan nodded, but fear gnawed at him. The house was patient, yes, but it also remembered, watched, and hungered, and if the binding failed tomorrow or the day after. He shivered, the ripple of the house's power had already begun, and nothing would ever be the same. From somewhere deep in the walls, a whisper threaded through the air, soft, coaxing. Ere remember, obey, the house waits. Part 17, Family Shadows. Ethan couldn't sleep. Even in his own bed back on Franklin Street, the pulse of the house thrummed through his thoughts. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, and Nick's pale face haunted him. Amber had stayed late, tracing old maps and symbols in the attic and cellar in her mind, preparing for what came next. Morning brought no relief. Ethan found himself sneaking into his father's study, the house quiet but tense around him. He rifled through old papers, family records, anything that might explain AC Caldwell, the diary, the attic, the cellar. He found them, letters, faded and brittle, tucked in a locked drawer. One was addressed to his father. The house waits, the blood remembers, do not speak of it, do not enter. One day the air will come, the walls will demand obedience. Ethan's fingers shook. Me. A photograph slipped from between the letters, a child in a faded blue dress, AC Caldwell, standing in front of the house. Eyes wide, hollow, watching, and behind them the outline of something in the windows, dark, twisted, unmoving, yet alive. Amber appeared silently in the doorway. You found it, she said softly. It's why the house chose you, and why it won't let you go. Your family hid the truth, now it's time you face it. Ethan swallowed hard. Why? Why did they hide it? Amber held the photograph out to him. Because it's not just a house, it's a predator, and every Caldwell before you tried and failed. AC tried and died, the others obeyed silently. But you have a choice, obey or fight. The words settled heavily over him. The walls of the house, the whispers, the shadows, they were all waiting, patient and ancient. The diary, the chest, the cellar, all pieces of a puzzle Ethan was only beginning to understand. Nick's voice came from the stairs. I don't want to go back, I can't, that thing, it's alive. Ethan looked at him, then at Amber. The line between fear and duty narrowed. The house wasn't done, and neither was he. A whisper slithered through his mind, familiar and impossible. Ere remember, obey, or be consumed, the house waits. Ethan clenched the photograph. The pulse in his veins matched the pulse of the house. He knew what he had to do next, confront the legacy of AC Caldwell, the secret of his family, and the darkness that lived within the walls. The choice was his, and the house was patient. Part 18, The House Tests. Night fell over Miller's Creek, and the house waited. Ethan, Amber, and Nick approached through the woods, the familiar ditch and sagging bridge marking the threshold between normal and nightmare. Ethan's grip tightened on the diary, the pulse of the house thrummed through him, impatient and alive. Crossing the bridge, the air thickened. The house loomed, windows dark, but Ethan could sense it, watching, breathing, remembering. Shadows flickered behind cracked glass, moving of their own accord. Amber led the way up the porch steps, calm, though her eyes flickered with the recognition of danger. It will test us tonight, she said. Everything we learned, it will try to undo. Inside, the house was alive. Floorboards shifted beneath them, walls seemed to expand, ceilings pressed down, and whispers threaded through the air. Ere remember, obey or fail. Nick froze. I feel it in my head again. Ethan gritted his teeth, repeating the phrases from the diary under his breath. The air thickened, shadows rising from corners, twisting, faces forming in the dark, mocking, hissing. A cold wind swept through the hallways, doors slamming shut behind them. Amber moved swiftly, tracing chalk symbols along the floor, salt at each corner. The shadows recoiled at the symbols, but not entirely. One stretched taller, a thin figure reaching out toward Ethan, its face elongated, hollow, whispering his name in a voice that was both familiar and alien. You must focus, Amber urged. The house wants you to fail, don't let it. Ethan's hands shook, sweat dripping into the chalk lines. He spoke the words aloud, tracing the symbols in the air, feeling the pull of the house clawing at his mind. The shadows twisted violently, screeching, lashing, but the lines of salt and the words of the diary held them at bay. Suddenly the walls seemed to pulse, a low, rhythmic heartbeat that filled the entire house. A single whisper rose above all others, clear and commanding. The air remembers, obeys for now. The shadows shrank back into corners and the house settled, quiet but alive, patient and watchful. Ethan's chest heaved, body trembling, but a faint sense of control lingered. For the first time, he realized the house would test them endlessly, its hunger never satisfied, its memory eternal. Amber placed a hand on his shoulder. We held it tonight, but tomorrow it will learn, and it will come harder. Ethan looked at Nick, pale but breathing steadily now. We can't let it win. The whisper echoed once more, threading through the walls, the floor, the shadows. Ere remember the house waits, always. Part 19, Revelation. The house didn't just wait, it watched. Ethan felt it in every pulse of his blood, in every creak of the floorboards, in the shadows stretching along the walls. He had to know the truth. Amber and Nick followed, tense, every step through the dark hallways amplified by the hum of the house. They reached the attic. The chest was open, the book of A.C. Caldwell's writings in Ethan's hands. The pages trembled as if alive, whispering in the rhythm of the house. Ere remember, obey, bind, fail. Ethan read aloud, voice steady despite the fear. Records of his ancestors, trapped by the house, their obedience or failure etched into the walls. AC had tried to resist, had failed, had bound the presence temporarily but left it alive, patient and hungry. Every Caldwell before him had been marked, and now so was he. Amber traced the attic walls. Everything leads back to blood, Ethan. The house doesn't just remember, it chooses. It needs the air to acknowledge it, to face it, or it consumes everything it touches. A sudden draft rattled the windows. Shadows lunged from corners, twisting violently. Doll's cracked eyes glinted, and the air thickened with whispers, layering, overlapping. Obey, bind, remember, the air. Nick stumbled back, clutching his head. I can't, it's in my mind again. Ethan gritted his teeth. He placed his hand over Nick's, letting the bloodline tether between them form. We fight together, he said. The first binding had shown him the way, but now he understood. The house would never stop. It wanted acknowledgement, resistance, control. The attic shook, shadows coalesced into a massive, faceless figure, black as void, limbs like twisted branches, eyes non-existent but seeing all. The house's pulse slammed in Ethan's chest. The whispers roared. Ere remember, obey, bind, join US. Ethan raised his voice, repeating the ancient words, tracing symbols, chalk lines glowing faintly in the darkness. Amber mirrored him, hands steady, chanting beside him. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently, pulling at the edges of reality, but the symbols and words held. For a moment the house seemed to pause, suspended, breathing, testing him. Then the shadows recoiled, shrinking back into the walls, corners, floorboards. Silence fell, thick and tense. Ethan's chest heaved. It knows I'm here, it knows who I am, but we're not done, not yet. Amber nodded. Tomorrow we finish it. You'll understand everything, the blood, the air, the house, and you'll have a choice. From the walls the final whisper lingered, soft, coaxing, patient, eternal. Ere remember, obey, or be consumed, the house waits. Ethan stared at the shadows, at the symbols, at the chest, and knew one thing. The final confrontation was near. Part 20, the finale. The house throbbed with life, every floorboard, wall, and shadow pulsing with a hunger that Ethan could feel in his bones. The attic, the cellar, every hidden corner, alive, waiting, patient. The final confrontation had come. Amber and Nick flanked him, pale but determined. The chest of A.C. Caldwell's belongings sat open in the center, the book trembling as if aware. Ethan's hands shook, holding it tightly. He could feel the presence in the walls, stretching, writhing, a faceless void hungry for the bloodline it recognized. It's testing us, Amber said, voice steady. Everything you've done, it's still not enough. You have to bind it fully, you have to face it. The shadows lunged suddenly, twisting, stretching into monstrous forms. Nick screamed, clutching his head, but Ethan stepped forward, voice firm, repeating the words of the ancient instructions, tracing the symbols with chalk, drawing the lines of salt. The attic seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heart. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, then surged again, faster, stronger. The house roared in 1,000 voices. Ere remember, obey, bind, join US. Ethan's voice rose, steady, commanding, stronger than fear. Amber mirrored him, hands moving in precise motions, tracing symbols in the air. Nick's trembling began to sync with theirs, the tether of bloodline and will holding him together. The shadows twisted violently, screams echoing, forms contorting, trying to escape the symbols. A wind surged through the attic, rattling windows, lifting dust, whispering voices layering into a deafening chorus. Then a pause, silence. The house seemed to hold its breath, watching. Ethan stood, chest heaving, sweat dripping, heart pounding. The shadows collapsed inward, drawn toward the pit of darkness the house had held in its heart for decades. The symbols glowed faintly, keeping the void at bay. The book in Ethan's hands fell open. A final page, previously blank, now bore a single line, black and sharp. The heir remembered, the house waits but respects. Balance is restored for now. The pulse of the house slowed. The shadows withdrew into corners, walls, floorboards, no longer pressing on them, though the faint hum lingered, patient, eternal. Amber exhaled, lowering her hands. You did it, Ethan, you bound it fully for now. Ethan's chest ached, but relief surged through him. For now. Amber nodded. The house never forgets, it waits, always, but today we survived, we learned, and the bloodline remembers its duty. Outside, the first light of dawn filtered through the broken windows. The house stood silent, patient, its hunger unfulfilled but contained. The diary, the book, the chest, they were relics of the past, lessons etched into wood and paper, binding blood to stone. Ethan stepped forward, feeling the weight of generations on his shoulders. He knew this was only the beginning. The house would wait, and he would be ready. The walls whispered one last time as he left the attic, faint and coaxing. Ere remember, the house waits, always. Ethan didn't look back, not yet.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to see more stories.